Again. Okay. Making sure it should be coming. One moment. Okay, everyone can see my screen. Thumbs up from Donette or Melissa, since your cameras are on, if you can see. Awesome. Great. Well, I am so excited to be here today. I'm excited to be spending time with this community, very specifically on how the importance of and the power of your personal presence. Wanted to spend just a second, just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Julia Atala. I'm co-founder and head coach at the MJJM Group, which is a boutique consulting and coaching firm that my husband and I founded together. I'm a former marketing executive who turned my passion for helping brands find their voices in the marketplace to really helping leaders like you find your voices. And I am so thrilled to be here today and excited to talk about presence. It's so core to who we are. Before we get started though, I usually like to start with how we'd like to show up together for each other today. For me, I have a few preferences. I would love for everyone to be present and engaged and interactive. I'll be putting some prompts out there throughout the presentation today. So it will be me talking and presenting to you, but I also want to make sure each of you are included and engaged and interacting with the content as well. So we'll rely a lot on chat today. If there's something in the chat that I find I would like to hear a little bit more about, I may ask you to come off mute if you're willing and to share a little bit more with your voice in addition to with chat. Is there anything else folks on the call today would like to make sure that we are observing as we are spending our next 49 minutes together? All right, then I'll move on. Let's start with getting present. This illustration really makes me chuckle because you may be like me. My brain looks a lot like the thing on the left-hand side of the screen. It is full of a bunch of things from dropping the kids off at camp to, oh my goodness, I forgot to switch the laundry before I sat down to, the 14 context switching conversations that I've had this morning. So I'd like for everyone to just take a moment, maybe put all those things in a basket, write them down if you need to, put them on a sticky note, ball it up and throw it across the floor, whatever you need to do to get them out of your mind. And then just take a deep breath. All right, good. I needed that too. All right, our objectives for today. We're going to talk a bit about personal presence and the 4 gears of leading. We're going to get some tips. We're going to talk about some tips along the way that can help you really bring your personal presence to the forefront. We'll have you do a little bit of a self-assessment around where your default presence is, and then how you might want to identify and commit to an experiment. And my number one goal is that we have fun today, which is why I'd like for this to be as interactive as possible. Okay, so I'm going to start, get your chat buttons ready. And let me make sure I can see the chat window. Let's see, show thumbnail. Maybe it will appear as soon as you guys start chatting. So what does being a leader mean to each of you? We're going to use these words, leader and presence, a number of times today, and I just want to make sure that we have a shared vocabulary around it. There we go. Chat. Teaching by example, someone who goes first, a visionary. Ooh, I like that. They know how to guide. Ooh, yes, we're going to talk about that a little bit. They show us how, but don't tell us to do it. Oh, nice. Okay. Good. Anyone else? They have the thoughtfulness and ability to motivate others to do great things. They place employees in their prime strength. Ooh, that's very compelling. I like that too. They know how to get things done through others. That's right. That's right. All right. For me, I really think, oftentimes I hear from people, and I'm so glad that it didn't really come up in the chat window today. Compassion. Thank you, Tammy. A lot of people think that in order to be a leader, you have to have a team of people that you manage directly. And for me, I really feel like if your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to become more, or to just be themselves, you are a leader. Everyone, one of my favorite quotes from the co-founder from Nike, he says, if you have a body, you are an athlete. And I kind of feel the same way about leadership. If you have a body, you are a leader. Great. Okay, so good. We're all on the same page about what a leader is. Now let's talk a little bit about what the word presence means to you. Tammy says, I've heard to manage the project, not the people. How does that resonate? Ooh, you know, interestingly, Tammy, I might parking lot that and come back to it because that is a good topic for us to talk about. Okay, being in the moment, Melissa says, for presence. What else? Well, your personal presence, your listening, Anne says, that's right, available, shows up. Good. Listening, actively engaging. Good. Good. Those are all things that we're going to talk about as well. And one thing, acknowledging, ooh, I like that, Anne, aware of surroundings. So what I bring to the room, exactly. As I think about it, simply put, your presence is your ability to inspire confidence in others. It's how you show up, it's how you create, it's how you engage, it's how you communicate. And we're gonna spend some time today really digging into how you can work on inspiring confidence, that confidence in others. And it starts with having confidence in yourself. So we'll spend a little bit of time there. When I think about what really inspires confidence in others, in your ability, it's when they feel heard. It's when they feel valued. It's when they feel part of something bigger. Those are just some examples. Thank you, Wanda. So those are kind of the two words that we're going to use a lot today: leadership and presence. I'd like to start with, I have two videos. They're very short, 1.5 minutes or less. I'd love for everyone, we're going to watch this first one. And as you watch it, I want you to think about what you notice about the style and presence of the coach, the gentleman's voice in this case, as he is talking to the skier.
I'll be fine.
Have fun.
I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess. Oh, okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Just keep it straight and you'll be fine.
Okay.
Same thing you do on the 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep. Have
It's a
fun.
bigger 20. Go ahead. You got this. I got it. Fine. You'll be fine. Okay. Here. The longer you wait, you'll be more scared. I go. Just the suspense at the top at the first time freaks you out. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now. Whoa! I'll be fine.
Okay, I'm going to pause there. What did you all notice about the gentleman in the background? What did you notice about his presence? positive, uplifting, encouraging. He was terrible. Calm, not very engaging, not very engaged. Interesting. Anne, if you'd be willing to come off mute, I'd love to hear a little bit about why he was terrible.
Oh, gosh, I just felt so bad for the girl. He just did not really have much to say to her as far as, giving her confidence or giving her technique or reminding her of what I'm sure she had already learned up to that point. He didn't offer her anything.
Oh, interesting. Do you think that he gave her what she needed?
Barely.
Interesting. But yet she did it.
Yeah, I have a feeling that was more peer pressure than his confidence building ability there. I don't know. That was my impression anyway.
Interesting. Okay, let me hear from Wanda. You said encouraging, and Crystal, you said positive and uplifting. Tell me more. Isn't it interesting how we all watched the same video and we all have a different perspective on his style and his presence?
Yeah, I think he could have done a better job, but he did encourage her when she was doubting herself. He reinforced what she already knew.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know a lot about the relationship that those two have. We have to make a lot of assumptions. You could assume that they've been training together for a few years now, that they're very comfortable with each other, and that perhaps he knew that what she needed was his silence and his encouragement. You could assume that what she needed was more. But just thinking about, he was calm. He let the kid work through it on their own. Yep, Brooke. We don't know what happened off screen before the jump. He may have been more verbally supportive. That's true. There's so many variables that could have gone into it. And one thing, too, just to restate the observation, it's so interesting how all of us experienced the same gentleman in the same situation, and we all had a different feeling about what his presence was. So keep that in mind as we watch this next video.
I'll do it.
This is one of my favorite videos to share with women in particular, because I think we can all relate. So with that.
It's just, there's all this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. All of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
Try to see things my way.
Okay, so what did you notice about the gentleman in this situation? We could talk about the woman all day long, but let's talk about the gentleman in this situation. And did you notice a shift from where he started to where he ended? I noticed that he wanted to jump directly to solving her problem. He was trying to help her fix it. He did, Amy says he did transition from being a fixer to letting her talk it out and work through it. He should have switched his methods. He listened carefully eventually. He told her what the problem was and didn't ask her what it was, right? Right, he made a lot of assumptions. He thought that he knew the answer to the question. He knew how to fix it because of the thing that was obvious. And what did you see in her body language as his presence shifted? Is that logic versus emotion, frustration at first, then comfort? You almost saw in her exactly, she relaxed, Amy, in her body language. She went from feeling very like, stop telling me how to solve this, to, oh, thank you, I just wanted you to listen. I just wanted you to listen. She will find the problem. She probably already knows the problem is the nail in her head, but she needed to talk it out. She needed someone to listen to her. Wisdom lies within each of us. That's right, Wanda. We're going to actually talk a little bit about that as well. You don't hear me, then you hear me. That's right. There's a difference between, let's see, is it hearing and listening? Right? There's a difference between the two things. All right, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we've now seen two different types of leaders. And I want to then now bring both of those situations into context just a little bit. And could I ask everyone, thank you, to go on mute, thank you. We'll talk a little bit about what Patricia Bergen calls the coaching leaders arena. Patricia Bergen wrote a book called The Essential Coaching Leader. I have it right here. You can't see it because I have a virtual background on. And she talks about the coaching leaders arena, and she talks about there being 4 gears, 4 ways of working, 4 quadrants, and then 2 realities. And I want to talk you guys through what those look like. So for the 4 gears, you really think about them in terms of how you create and how you engage. On the creation side, on the far left side, you as the leader get to be the main creator or doer, and your brain lights up. So you're having a conversation with someone, they have a nail in their head, and you say, oh my goodness, you have a nail in your head, right? Because your brain lights up. You've seen the solution. You've seen the problem. You've seen a potential fix. On the far right-hand side, the other person gets to be the main creator or doer. You challenge them and you support them, and their brain starts to light up. Oh, I noticed that the pain is right here in my head. What does that feel like, right? And they start to work through it, as an example, not to take that video too far. Then you've got the how you engage. On the bottom part of the quadrant, you can engage with your subject matter expertise, with your experience, and on the top, you can engage with your curiosity, with your questioning, with your listening. A great example might be, actually, let me build out the 4 then quadrants, or the 4 gears. You can be in informing mode, you can be in directing mode, you can be in mentoring mode, which you all had a whole Let's Talk Business webinar on, I think last month or a few weeks ago, or you can be in coaching mode. So let's just take one kind of silly everyday example. Someone walks into the office, oh, they're exasperated. Whew, man, it's been a tough morning. I just need some caffeine. Okay, that's where they are. You can say, all right, great, the kitchen's down the hall and there's English breakfast tea, go grab what you need. That's directing. You can say, oh gosh, I can see that you are, that you need caffeine. We've got English breakfast tea, which is 85% caffeinated. And you start to inform them, you start to educate them a little bit on maybe why their body is telling them they need caffeine, why it isn't, right? You go into your subject matter expertise and you're teaching them and that sort of thing. You could say, oh, I've been in your shoes before. I know what that feels like. And what worked for me was to get 2 tea bags and put it in and do an extra caffeinated dose. That's kind of more along the mentoring. You're using your subject matter expertise, but you're still letting them be the main creator or doer. And then there's this coaching mode, this coaching gear, where you kind of jump in and you notice, oh my goodness, you really look exasperated. Tell me more. You know, what happened this morning? Why do you need caffeine? And you really start to get curious, really curious about what it is that's going on with them. And is it really caffeine that they need, or do they just need you to sit back on the couch and put your hand on their hand and listen? What is it that they need? So those are your 4 coaching gears. Sorry, your 4 leadership gears. Then we have this green circle around the coaching leaders arena, which is one of the 2 realities, and that is your personal presence. And we're going to spend the rest of our time today really talking about personal presence. But before I move on there, it's also important to acknowledge the orange dotted circle around, which is the other reality that happens in a leader's arena. And that is the organizational realities, the systemic realities, the things that you don't really have control over. This could be things like, culture. It could be how decisions are made. If you're in a company that is, no matter what size, if it's more than just you, then there's going to be the reality of the way things get done in that business, how good work is rewarded. And all of those things are the systemic realities that you keep in mind as you show up every day. Policies and procedures, that's exactly right. All those types of things. So let's spend some time talking about your presence. This really is about your authenticity, your transparency, your presence. It's how you show up, it's how you create and engage, and it's how you communicate. The one thing that I know for sure about presence is that courage and bravery really operate in the background of all great leaders, of all great humans with that presence that we all love and clamor to be around. And that can take any number of shapes. It can begin with being aware, noticing and being aware of who you are, how you show up, how comfortable you are with your own perspectives and your strengths, your growing edges, your vulnerabilities. How comfortable are you with all of those things? Skilled leaders really learn to challenge their fears and their defaults in the interest of the people that they're leading, in the interest of the people that they're working with. And in short, I'd say being brave and courageous, even if you're kind of faking it a little bit at the beginning, can lead to confidence inside and out. So let's talk about the core 4. There's four things that really make up the essence of your presence. Respect, energy, acknowledgement. I love that word came up earlier when we were talking about presence. And listening, that word also came up when we were talking about presence earlier. Respect is really about leaders expressing respect for others' goals, for their opinions, their agendas, their confidences, their resourcefulness. Energy really is about leaders studying and using their own personal energy, their own personal judgment and values and experiences and intuition, really tapping into their own personal energy. Acknowledgement is when leaders acknowledge what's admirable about the other person, saying what they see in their character, in their actions, in their strengths, in their visions. That word came up earlier as well, in their vision. And then listening, leaders listen and focus, and with focus and curiosity, they listen to the voices, they listen to mood, they listen to breath, they listen to posture, they follow the energy. It really is about the energy of the other person. So we're going to dive into each of these 4. Let's talk about respect. How do you show up or create and engage and communicate with respect? What are some ways that you personally show up and bring respect for others? Being on time. Yep. Being on time. That's important. Yeah. Being true to my word. Doing what you say you're going to do. Exactly. Your tone. That's true. It is interesting on the tone of voice. That's a great one that I might add to my list, because, you know, you can say, I love you, or you can say, oh, I love you. And it really has a totally different impact on the person on the other side of the table. Listen before speaking, do the right thing. Stop what I'm doing to fully listen to them, whether I agree or not. That takes courage. That takes bravery, for sure. Well, let's talk. All of these are amazing. Ask them how their personal well-being and family. Oh, that goes such a long way when people feel like you care about not just them as an employee or as a colleague, but as an actual human being. So we've mentioned a few of these things already. The few that I wanted to call out, a few tips, are being fully present, no distractions. The icon I originally had here was a phone with a giant line through it. And I thought, well, that might be too on the nose. So being fully present, and being fully present, it's not just our devices that are our distractions. It's, you know, the kids filming their YouTube videos in the background, not that I'm speaking from personal experience right now, to the dirty dishes downstairs or whatever the case is. And so being fully present. Someone mentioned earlier that people know how to solve their own problems. And so if you show up really believing that the person across the table from you is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, that is a great way of showing respect. They don't need saving. They don't need you to tell them how to do it. They know the answer within them. They might just need your help getting there. Clarity of focus. This is one that I love, in that oftentimes we show up and we make assumptions about each other. We make assumptions about, well, the outcome of the meeting that I want is this, therefore they must also share that same outcome. And the reality is we have an opportunity to clarify the focus. Set the agreement up front. How do we want to interact with each other today? How do we want to operate? What does success look like at the end of our meeting today? So really creating that agenda and being willing to shift on that agenda as the conversation moves, if it looks like that's what needs to happen. And then creating space, and not just creating space for them, but creating a safe space for them. So those are some tips for, in addition to all the wonderful things in the chat window, to keep in mind for building respect. So let's talk about energy. What can you do to use your own energy? Again, this is how the energy that you bring. How can you use your energy to show up and create and engage and communicate with confidence? Come from a place of positivity. I love that. And one of the things I love about that is positivity doesn't mean unnecessarily happy. It means you've made a choice and you're intentional about how you want to show up. I listen to fun music and walk in dancing. I always get grounded before I see a client. Getting grounded really helps with finding your energy. Where is your energy? Do you have a nervous energy today? Do you have a calm energy today? What is the energy that you think the person sitting across the table might need from you? And how do you bring that? I love that. Affirmations and meditations to connect to positive energy, deep breathing. I love that so many people are so in touch with the breathing and mindfulness and those types of things. I'll add to that a few things. I'll just go ahead and build this out. For me, one of the most important aspects of your energy is your posture. And, you know, Amy Cuddy, you guys have probably heard of her, or maybe even seen her TED Talk. She has a TED Talk on your body language may shape who you are. And I will put links to these videos in the chat window before the end of the session. But it really talks about the importance of your posture. And, you know, some people like to do what's called a power pose before they walk into a particularly difficult conversation, or if you're about to give a big presentation. What is that power pose, that pose that makes you feel really confident? Is it standing up and hands on hips like Wonder Woman? Is it, I love Wonder Woman, by the way. Linda Carter was my hero growing up. Is it just sitting up tall and straight? But you know, if you're slumped over, if you are staring out the window, those are the types of postures that people read into about you, and they get a certain energy read from you depending on your posture. And I love this little slothy animal sleeping on the branch. The second thing really is about making eye contact. And I know in real life, it's a little bit easier than it is in virtual life. In virtual life, just look into the camera. Let people know that you are speaking to them, not speaking at them. Smiling is honestly one of my absolute favorite things. And going back to Wanda's point about positivity, this isn't about being unnaturally happy, but just think about when you pass someone on the street and they smile, what impact does that have on you? A complete stranger who smiles at you. So then imagine somebody who knows you well, what power does that smile hold? And then the last thing is looking the part. You know, a lot of people, when they talk about presence, talk about oh, I love that. They smile back, mirror neurons. Yes, absolutely. And so, you know, on that note, sometimes if you're having a bad day, just go look in the mirror and smile at yourself. Or if you know that, gosh, I'm in a really negative mood right now, I'd like to figure out how I can improve that. What can you do? Find a picture of yourself smiling, go look in the mirror. The last thing is look the part. And I put this in only because so many people emphasize the way you look for when they talk about your presence, your leadership presence, your executive presence. And while I think that has a place, the place that I believe looking the part has is all about your own internal confidence. Do you have that pair of boots that you just feel like a kick-ass woman in when you wear them? Do you have that, you know, do you have that sports bra that you just love the way it feels? It's super comfy. Do you have that pair of jeans that not only are comfortable, but every time you wear them, you get compliments and you feel great? Like, what are the physical things that you might want to do to help you get in the mindset of confidence, the inner confidence, and less about what the other people think about the outfit or the hair or the makeup or the whatever? What is it that you need to look the part? Okay. Anything I missed? Anything anyone would want to add? I love the everything I saw in the chat. Okay. Well, then let's talk about acknowledgement. How do you acknowledge character strengths, actions in others, and how do you like to be acknowledged? What's happening when you're acknowledging or when you're feeling acknowledged? Confidence is built, validation. Yeah, I like that. Sanity check. That's right. I like to say back to people what they said to me to confirm. Yeah, that's right. An important distinction too is that acknowledgement isn't cheerleading, right? One of the things that I appreciated about the gentleman in the skiing video was that he could have stood there and said, "You can do it. Come on, you got this. You can do it. I've seen you do things like this before. You can do it." but it might not have been in service to her and what she needed at that point in time. And it might have felt a lot like cheerleading versus a little bit of the championing that he did when she said, you know, it's kind of like a big 20. And he said, yeah, kind of like a big 20. And, you know, subtle things. I like to point out what they do and talk to them directly. I say, I like how you did that. Tell me more. Or I could use that gift here. Speaking words of affirmation to someone goes a long way. That's right. So I will just add on to that. Speaking with clarity. Clarity is kind. Clarity is super kind. Few words or fewer words, focusing on the other person. You know, oftentimes women in particular, we like to apologize for things. I'm sorry, but, or gosh, I'm sorry that I'm interrupting, but can I? So you don't need to apologize. Don't apologize. That's not speaking with clarity. Wanda says, showing gratitude to the other person. That's right. Grace and truth. I talk about these two things together because oftentimes we have a default. We either speak with grace or we speak with truth. I tend to index more on the speak with grace. I'm very supportive. I like to support people. And when it comes time to challenging them, it's uncomfortable for me. But sometimes the impact is really when you get that perfect blend of speaking with grace and supporting them, being supportive, while also speaking the truth, being direct, challenging them. Sometimes I'll have clients say, you know, gosh, I don't know why I signed up for this thing. I can't do it. I don't know what I was thinking. And I say, stop, I'm going to challenge you on that. I've known you now for X number of years, and I've seen you do this. I've seen you do this. I've seen you do this, and I've seen you do this. What's different? So challenge them in a way that feels like they're still being supported. And then finally, say what you see and hear. The Center for Creative Leadership talks about doing this in a way where you're not just listening for the facts, you're listening for the feelings that are underneath the words, the facts, and the values. Like, what are you hearing as they're telling their story, as they're talking to you about this thing, their problem? You can focus in on the problem, or you can take a step back and say, what am I hearing as you're talking about the problem? Do I hear a theme here? Do I hear you talking about a problem like this often enough that might be worth me saying, this is the fourth time it's come up, something like this. It's a different situation, but it's similar. What do you think's behind that? And really seeking out their feelings and their values. Sometimes it's, Donette says, sometimes it's timing. And I'm sorry, it's a habit. I'm trying very hard to stop. How did that ever come about anyway? That is true. I don't know, but we all do it. We probably learned from our moms and aunts and our grandmothers, and they learned from their moms and aunts and grandmothers. And here we are in 2021 saying, I'm sorry. So, all right, good. Anything you all would like to add to how you can acknowledge the character and strengths and actions of others? Great. Let's switch to listening. Listening. This one is one of my favorites. When someone's actively listening to you, what does it feel like? Heaven, supportive, respect. Yes. That you're important. Feel safe. Ah, finally, just like the woman with the nail in her head. Ah, finally, somebody was listening to me. I matter. It's caring, it's connection. Yes, safe is a good one. I'm going to talk to you about 3 levels of listening, and all 3 are important for various reasons, but let's just talk a little bit about it. Level 1 listening is really kind of internal listening. You're listening to respond. Someone says, I've had a bad day, and you say, oh, I've had a bad day too. And you're listening to respond. They say, I had an argument with my boss. Oh, I remember that time I had an argument with my boss. You're empathizing with them, but at the same time, you're listening to respond. You're listening with a judgment of their problem. You're not actually listening to the person. You're listening for the problem. The second type is listening to understand. This is where you're getting much more focused on the other person, which is good. You're actually listening to the words that they're saying. You're focused more on the listening to respond drives me batty. Yes, I'm with you, Anne, on that. And I'll say sometimes listening to respond is the right thing to do. Not always. There's a time and a place. It's all situational. You know, if there was a fire, you wouldn't want to run into the room and say, oh my goodness, my kitchen's on fire. And for the person to say, you know, oh, tell me how that feels. So there's a time and a place, but let's talk about listening to understand. Listening to understand. This is focused listening. You're really focused in on the other person. And you're starting to pick up on some of those cues. You're not only taking in their words, you're paying attention to their expressions. You're starting to pick up on their emotions, on their values. And you're starting to pick up a little bit on what they're not saying. You know, what are those cues? You may notice some of your own inner chatter happening. You may get triggered a little bit by the story that they're telling, and you're thinking in your head, oh, I totally remember when that happened to me. But you're able to stay focused on them versus making it about you. So level 1 listening is you make it about yourself. Level 2 listening is you make it about the other person. So then let's talk about level 3 listening. This is called global listening or whole body listening. You know, we talked earlier about how important posture is and body language. And this is really where a lot of that comes into play, because not only do people pick up on your posture and your body language, but when you are truly listening to another person, you also have an opportunity to pick up on their body language. What is their body saying to you? Not just what is their mouth saying to you? This is a good opportunity to get into not only what's maybe happening in their heads, in their minds, but also what's happening in their hearts. We really embody a lot of our feelings. We embody stress, we embody anger, we embody frustration. And oftentimes, if we as the listener pick up on those, we can really get to some meaty conversations with the person on the other end. One example, while I was still in my corporate job, I walked into a meeting and there were 2 senior women executives. One was my boss and one was my colleague's boss. And the 4 of us were sitting in a room. It was 4 women, which at this high-tech corporation didn't happen all that often. And what was interesting is the two executives came into the room and they just automatically felt like they were on opposite sides. And they, to the point where they were speaking over each other and they were balling up their fists as they were talking, and like not in an aggressive, Melissa, I saw your face. It's not like they were going to fight, but it was, you know, you clench, your body gets tight. And I remember we were about 15 minutes into the conversation, and at one point my heart was beating so fast because their interaction was having such an impact on me that I stood up and in the meeting and I said, can I just call a timeout for a moment? I'm noticing that both of you are leaning in and you're kind of yelling at each other. And I actually think you're not that far apart. Would you mind if I just whiteboarded what I'm hearing from each of you for just a moment? And I'm sure my voice was shaking, my heart was beating, like I was sweating. But it was one of those moments where just picking up on the body language in the room and the tone and all of those types of things resulted in that meeting going to a place where it wouldn't have gone had we stayed on current course and speed of talking over each other, angry with each other, and yelling. And we ended up getting to a place where we had a common objective for our next conversation. And we knew how we were going to take what we talked about today and go and build on it so we could build a plan that was actually going to work. So that's just one example. In high tech, I find that there's a lot of level 1 listening that happens. People are not listening to the other person. They're thinking about what they're going to say next. And so huge opportunity for that to change. Any comments or questions or thoughts on this before I move forward? We're down to our last 6 minutes already. Oh, good stuff. Great. Well, I found this picture of this turtle and I thought, oh my goodness, if this turtle doesn't have presence, I don't know who does. This quote, making an impression is not a choice, it's an inevitability. Whether you are intentional about your presence or not, you have one, and it is landing on other people. And so this, hopefully you'll walk away today with just even a few, 1 or 2 new things that maybe you hadn't thought of or hadn't thought of in a while to help you be more intentional about your presence. And now we get to kind of the fun part. So this is called the 1% commitment. And it's from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, if you haven't read it. It is pretty darn exciting. And the whole notion around the 1% commitment is that oftentimes when we decide we want to embark on some sort of change in ourselves, we try to go all in. Well, here's the 15 things that I need to go and change. And then all of a sudden it gets overwhelming and we stop. You know, it's why New Year's resolutions fail pretty much, 95% of the time. Don't quote me on that stat because I don't know what the stats are. But so if you have a piece of paper and a pen, or if you just want to think about it, I'd love for each of you to say Atomic Habits. That is the book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, C-L-E-A-R. Just write down a couple of thoughts about your default presence. My default presence is, how do you show up in a typical day? And is there a situation that you'd like to change? Pick one situation. I'd really like to show up differently with my kids. And in particular, when my kids are arguing. And then what are a few different ways you could make that change 1% at a time? Well, I could, as soon as they start arguing, I could pause and take a deep breath. I could walk out of the room for a moment, those types of things. And then what impact will this have on your work or on your life if it's a personal experience? And by making this change, I'll be able to do what and who will know. The who will know is an important part because it's important for you to write down a very specific name so that you then have an accountability partner. And you can I'm going to call up Wanda and say, Wanda, today in this webinar, I committed to doing this one thing, and I'd like for you to check in with me in a week and ask me if I've done it. And I'm happy to be an accountability partner if needed. But think about that. So I'm going to give everybody a minute to just jot down some stuff. And while you guys are jotting that down, I will put the links to, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. I will put the links to the resources that I mentioned. And in addition to that, I would love for each of you to take a minute. It will take literally 3 minutes. Oh, shoot, the links aren't popping in. Let's do this. I will also include a link to a survey. And I'd love for you all to take just a couple of minutes to let me know what worked and didn't work about this session today. Is there anyone who would like to raise their hand and share their 1% commitment? And if not, that's okay. Okay. Donette, are you saying that you'd like to share yours or no? No, okay. I saw lips moving. I thought maybe. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time. Stay tuned. I'm going to put a link right here into the window for a survey. It will literally take you 3 minutes. If you wouldn't mind just taking a couple of minutes to do that right now, I would be much appreciated. Thank you all very much, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or send me an email if you are interested in having an accountability partner and following up. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Julia.
Thank you.